Here is something to think about. What if the very thing you have been adding to feed your soil is quietly working against your plants? Why is something that looks dark, rich, and full of life is actually draining the strength out of everything you grow? Now that may sound hard to believe, because compost is trusted. It is recommended everywhere. It is seen as the foundation of healthy soil, and in many cases, it is. But not all compost is the same. I remember stepping into a garden that should have been thriving. The soil looked perfect, dark, loose, full of organic material. You would expect strong plants, but that is not what I saw. The leaves were pale, growth was slow, production was weak. It did not make sense, because everything on the surface looked right, so I knelt down, reached into the soil, and what I found told a different story. Warm, too warm. That soil was not stable. It was still active, still breaking down, still consuming, and that is when it became clear, this was not living soil. This was unfinished compost still doing its work. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Now here is what most people do not realize. Compost does not stop working just because you spread it. If it is not fully finished, it continues to break down in your soil, and when that happens, it begins to compete with your plants for nutrients, for nitrogen, for balance, and your plants feel it. They do not collapse overnight, they just never reach their full strength. Now let me ask you, have you ever added compost expecting a boost, but instead things just felt slower? Like something was off, but you could not explain it? Drop that in the comments, because what you are about to see is something most people never notice. And once you see it, you will never look at compost the same way again. And the moment that compost goes into your soil, before it is truly finished, something begins to happen beneath the surface that you cannot see. But your plants can feel it. You see, unfinished compost is still hungry. It is still breaking down, still transforming, still consuming energy. And to complete that process, it needs nitrogen. So where does it get it from? Your soil, the very soil your plants depend on. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Now imagine this for a moment. You plant your seeds into what you believe is rich, fertile ground. Everything looks promising, but below the surface, the compost is pulling nutrients away, not giving, taking. And your plants are left trying to grow with less than they need. That is when you begin to notice the signs. Leaves that should be deep green turn pale. Growth that should be steady slows down. Plants that should be strong feel weak. But here is the part that confuses most people. They think they need to add more compost, more fertilizer, more input, trying to fix something that seems like a deficiency, when the real problem is competition happening underground. Now let me give you a simple picture. Two growers. The first adds compost that looks ready, but is not fully finished. Their soil becomes active, unstable, constantly shifting. The second waits. They allow their compost to fully mature, cool, balanced, stable. When it goes into the soil, it supports life instead of competing with it. And the difference becomes obvious. One struggles to maintain growth, the other builds it steadily. Same intention, different understanding. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever seen plants stall for no clear reason, even though you did everything right? Because sometimes, the issue is not what you forgot to add, it is what you added too soon. Now what makes this even more dangerous is that unfinished compost is only one part of the problem, because there is another kind of compost that looks even better, feels even richer, but can slowly create a different kind of damage. And most people never see it coming. And that second kind of compost is the one people trust the most, because it looks perfect, dark, fine, rich, almost like pure soil, and when you spread it, it feels like you are doing everything right. But here is the danger. When compost is too rich and used too heavily, it begins to overload your soil. Now this does not happen overnight. At first, everything may look better. Plants respond quickly, leaves get bigger, growth seems stronger, and that is what makes it so deceptive. Because beneath the surface, something else is building. Nutrients begin to stack up, salts can accumulate. Balance begins to shift, and soil that once functioned naturally starts to depend on constant input. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Now here is what happens over time. The soil becomes heavy. Water does not move the same way. Air spaces begin to shrink. Roots do not spread as freely. And slowly, that strong, natural growth begins to fade. Now let me give you a picture again. One grower adds thick layers of compost every season. No pause, no observation, just more and more and more. The soil becomes dark, but dense, rich, but unbalanced. Another grower uses compost differently. They apply it lightly. They give the soil time to respond. They allow balance to form. Their soil stays open, alive, responsive, and over time, it becomes easier to grow in, not harder. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your soil should be better by now, but instead, it feels heavier, harder to manage, less productive? That is often not a lack of compost. It is too much of it. Now here is the deeper truth most people miss. Compost is not meant to replace soil. It is meant to support it. And when you cross that line, you do not just slow growth, you begin to quietly damage the system itself. Now we are coming into the final part of this, because once you understand these two dangers, unfinished compost and overuse of rich compost, you begin to see how to build soil the right way. And this is where everything begins to come into focus. Because now you can see it clearly, it was never compost itself that caused the problem. It was how it was used. Unfinished compost, too much rich compost, poor timing, each one quietly working beneath the surface, changing the way your soil functions. And when soil stops functioning properly, your plants cannot reach their full potential. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Now let us bring this back to something simple. Two people, same garden, same sunlight, same intention. The first person believes more is better. They add compost often, heavy layers, every chance they get. They do not wait for it to fully finish. They do not observe how the soil responds. They just keep feeding it, hoping for stronger results. But over time, the soil becomes unstable, too active in some moments, too heavy in others, and plants never quite settle into strong, steady growth. Now the second person takes a different path. They slow down. They let their compost fully mature. They add it lightly, intentionally, only when needed. They watch how the soil responds. They pay attention. And over time, something powerful begins to happen. The soil stabilizes. It breathes. It holds moisture without becoming heavy. And plants begin to grow the way they were meant to. Steady, strong, consistent. That is the difference. Now let me ask you something. When you step into your garden, are you adding compost out of habit or out of understanding? Because that one question can change everything about your results. Now we are coming to the final part of this. Because once you understand the danger, you are no longer guessing. You are making decisions with purpose. And that is where real abundance begins. And this is where everything truly comes together. Because now you understand something most people never realize, that compost, the very thing trusted to build soil, can either create life or quietly take it away. Not by intention, but by misunderstanding. Now let us step back one last time. Two people, same soil, same access to compost, same desire to grow strong, healthy food. The first person keeps doing what they have always heard. Add more compost. So they do. They add it early. They add it often. They add it without checking if it is ready. And over time, the soil becomes unpredictable. Sometimes too active. Sometimes too heavy. Sometimes lacking balance. And their plants never fully settle into strong, steady growth. The harvest comes, but it is inconsistent. And the effort never quite matches the return. Now the second person learns to see compost differently, not as a solution, but as a tool. They wait until it is fully finished, cool, stable, balanced. They apply it lightly, and only when the soil truly needs it. They observe more than they add. They build the soil, instead of constantly feeding it. And over time, everything begins to change. The soil becomes easier to work. Plants establish faster. Growth becomes predictable. And the harvest becomes reliable. Stronger food, better quality, more consistency. This is what wealthy food looks like. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Now here is the part I want you to carry with you. The goal is not to keep adding more. The goal is to reach a point where the soil begins to work on its own, where life beneath the surface is balanced, active, self-sustaining. Because when that happens, you are no longer chasing results, you are creating them. Now I want to leave you with one simple question. The next time you reach for compost, pause for a moment and ask yourself, is this helping my soil, or am I just hoping it will? Because the answer to that question will shape everything that grows from it. And the truth is, the soil beneath your feet is not just waiting for more input, it is waiting for understanding. And when understanding meets living soil, abundance appears. Remember, wealthy foods lead to health, strength, and peace of mind. Thank you for watching, and do not forget to subscribe for more practical wisdom and simple methods to help you grow abundance right where you are. Until next time, keep growing.